Okay, now that we've got some images to work with, let's see how we can set them as, or let the user set one of these to be their main image. And we'll start off in the API here. Let's close all of the client stuff down. And we'll do this work in our user's controller. So we'll open this, and just below our add photo method, we'll create a new endpoint for setting of the main photo. And because we'll be updating a resource here, we're going to use an HTTP put, and we'll need to give this a root parameter. And I'm going to say set-main-photo and /, and then we need to pass this the photo ID. And the photo ID is going to be a number, so we can add the int constraint there. And then we can say public async task, and this is going to return an action result. And we're going to say set main photo and use the int of the photo ID. And once again, we need to get our user from the user repository. So I'm going to say var user equals user repository, and we're going to say get user by username async, and then we're going to use our user get username method. Once again, we need to check if the user is null, and if so, we're going to return a bad request and say could not find user. And then we need to get hold of the photo that matches the ID of the root parameter. So we're going to say var photo equals, and then we're going to say user.photos, and somehow I've done it again. I forgot to say await when accessing our user repository. So even though this async keyword is great for developers to tell them that we need to await this, because of auto-completion, it's just very easy to select it and then forget anyway. But at least we'll know soon enough, as soon as we try and use it, if we don't have access to the property that we're expecting. So I need to access user.photos and then say first or default, and we're going to say x goes to x.id, that's equal to the photo ID. Now we'll do a couple of checks here, because we don't want to try and set a photo to be the main if it already is the main photo, nor do we want to try and do that with a photo that doesn't exist. So we're just going to add a check, and we're going to say if photo is equal to null, or the photo dot is main, then we're going to return a bad request and say cannot use this as main photo. And below this, then we can actually set the photo to be main. But first of all, we need to get the current photo that is the main photo, as we'll need to make that not the main photo. So we're going to say var current main equals, and we'll say user.photos and first or default, and say x goes to x.isMain. Below this, we'll check to see, or check to make sure, the current main photo is not null. So we'll say if current main is not equal to null, then we can set the current main photo is main equal to false. And then the photo that we're updating, that we want to be the main photo, we're going to say photo is main equals true. And then we can save our changes into the database. So we're going to say if await and use repository and save all async, and if that is successful, then because this is an HTTP puts, we're going to return no content. And if that fails, we'll return a bad request, and we'll say problem setting main photo. And that's all we need to do there. So we can test this now in Postman. So let's check the status of the API. And I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see if hot reload of changes succeeded. And go to Postman. And we've got a request here to set the main photo. So let's just check what we're working with. So I can log in as Lisa and click send. I get Lisa's token. And if I get user by username and just check the images that we're working with, I've got several now, and one with an ID of 1, and the others are ID of 11, 12, 13 and 14. So let's use the set main photo, and this request is got the URL hard coded in, so I'll just adjust that now I've seen it and change it to URL and save this one. And we'll use the photo with the ID of 11 and try and set this one to be the main photo. So I'll click send, and well, surprisingly, Hot Reload actually did its job. I take it back, Hot Reload. Well done for getting something updated after a code change. So let's see if that did take effect though, and we can check that by requesting our user once again. And if we take a look, we can see that the ID of 1 is main is now set to false, and the ID of 11 is now set to true. So that proves our system works. And now we have this working in the API. Next we'll take a look at this in the client side.